Just one little thing. It's no big deal. It's never going to, hurt the show or anything like that.
Jim Carrey has made the world laugh for decades, but behind the rubber faces and blockbuster hits lies a life that has raised as many questions as his legendary career. Behind the fame were messy relationships, personal struggles, and public heartbreaks that never truly faded from the spotlight. While he became one of Hollywood's biggest icons, his private life often pulled more focus than the work itself. From his meteoric rise to the dark controversies that followed, we're taking a closer look at the man behind the smile. A hard start in Ontario. Born James Eugene Carey in Newmarket, Ontario, Jim grew up in a Catholic household with his parents and 3 siblings. His father, Percy, was a musician and accountant, while his mother, Kathleen, was a homemaker. Even at age 8, Jim was a performer, practicing faces in the mirror for hours. By 10, he was bold enough to write to Carol Burnett, claiming he was already a master of impressions. However, talent didn't shield his family from hardship. Financial struggles eventually forced the Careys into homelessness, living out of a Volkswagen van and later a tent. To help make ends meet, a teenage Jim and his brother worked grueling overnight shifts as janitors and security guards at a tire factory. On his 16th birthday, he dropped out of school to chase comedy, carrying the weight of his family's survival on his shoulders. The first big failures. Jim's first stand-up attempt at age 15 was a disaster. At Toronto's Yuck Yucks, his impressions failed to land, and he was booed off stage. It took 2 years to find his confidence again. By 1979, he returned with a stronger act, earning his first paid set. Despite early rejection from Saturday Night Live, momentum began to build. The Toronto Star hailed him as a genuine star coming to life, and legendary comic Rodney Dangerfield soon signed Jim to open for his tour. Suddenly, the kid from the van was a man people were watching very closely. Hollywood rejections and the big break. Moving to Hollywood in 1983, Jim faced more stings. He was booked for The Tonight Show only to be dropped, then finally made it on but wasn't invited to the couch by Johnny Carson, a sign he hadn't quite conquered the room. He realized impressions weren't enough. Jim began reinventing himself, moving away from mimicry toward the wild, physical characters that would define his future. From 1990 to 1994, In Living Color gave him a national platform, but 1994 was the year everything changed. In a single calendar year, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber turned him into a global phenomenon. Love, fame, and spiritual searches. As his career exploded, so did public curiosity about his private world. Jim married Melissa Wolmer in 1987, but the marriage ended in divorce in 1995 just as his fame reached its peak. A second marriage to Dumb and Dumber co-star Lauren Holly lasted less than a year. Jim was always open about his intensity and spiritual side. He famously wrote himself a $10 million check for acting services rendered years before he actually earned it, citing the law of attraction. He practiced transcendental meditation and sought deeper meaning, yet his personal life remained a revolving door of high-profile relationships, including a brief engagement to Renee Zellweger and a long-term partnership with Jenny McCarthy. Proving the critics wrong. By the late 90s, Jim wanted to prove he was more than just a funny face. He took a pay cut for The Truman Show, winning a Golden Globe and earning critical respect. He followed this with an immersive, haunting performance as Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon. Though the Oscars famously snubbed him, Jim continued to oscillate between massive hits like How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Bruce Almighty, and indie masterpieces like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Off-screen, he was equally complex, battling depression and eventually becoming a vocal, controversial figure in the anti-vax movement, which brought heavy public backlash. The Shadow of Tragedy, Catriona White. The darkest chapter of Jim's life began in 2012 when he met Irish makeup artist Catriona White. Their relationship was described as a roller coaster, intense and unstable. In September 2015, just days after their latest breakup, Catriona was found dead of a prescription drug overdose. It was ruled a suicide. Jim served as a pallbearer at her funeral, releasing a statement calling her a delicate Irish flower. But a year later, the grief turned into a legal nightmare. Catriona's estranged husband, Mark Burton, and her mother, Bridget Sweetman, filed wrongful death lawsuits against Carey. The lawsuit and the fallout. The allegations were devastating. the lawsuits claimed Jim used his wealth to illegally obtain prescription drugs under the alias Arthur King. Gave these drugs to Catriona despite knowing her history of depression. Infected her with multiple STIs and then tried to gaslight or hush her. Ugly text messages were leaked to the press, painting a picture of a man very different from his public persona. Jim fought back fiercely, calling the lawsuits an evil attempt to exploit him. He maintained that Catriona had stolen the pills and that her struggles predated their meeting. In early 2018, the lawsuits were finally dismissed, but the image of the happy-go-lucky comic was permanently altered. A new chapter in 2026. In recent years, Jim found a career resurgence with the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, reminding audiences of his physical comedy genius. However, he also retreated into his art, using painting and political cartoons to express a more cynical, reflective worldview. By early 2026, Jim returned to the spotlight in Paris to receive an honorary César Award. The night was filled with bizarre rumors. Because of his changed appearance, some fans even speculated he had been replaced by an impersonator. However, officials confirmed it was indeed Jim, who delivered a heartfelt speech in French. The night also marked a personal milestone. Jim publicly confirmed his relationship with his companion, Minnie, calling her his sublime companion and seating her alongside his daughter and grandson. It seemed, after years of storm and controversy, Jim had found a moment of peace. What do you think? Jim Carrey's life has been a series of extreme highs and devastating lows. Do you think the public has ever truly seen the real Jim, or has there always been a darker story behind the mask? Has your view of him changed after the controversies of recent years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Hollywood history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you never miss a story. Stay tuned for more fascinating stories from the world of entertainment, only here on Prestige Buzz.